Hey guys, welcome back to How to Roll Dice. I'm Josh, and today we're going to be doing a review and walkthrough of this game here, INIS by Matago Games, or Matago Games. I'm not exactly sure you pronounce that. Pretty sure it has something to do with a small black cat coming out of a chest, though. INIS is a spectacular game for 2 to 4 players that sees those players taking on the role of clans that are set out to explore and conquer a newly discovered island in ancient Ireland. This game is extremely enjoyable. It is immersed in Celtic lore and mythology. The components through the game and throughout the game are beautifully designed. The game is easy to learn and a ton of fun to play, and it's got enough nuance and complexity that you can come back to it time and time again. Getting into what comes in the box, getting into the box itself, which is this nice big chonky boy here with this beautiful artwork on the front of it. Again, great example of what there is more to come of throughout the course of this game. But what you have in the box is these oversized, triangular, jagged-edged, puzzle piece-like territory tiles. These are going to make up the board, the map that you're going to be exploring and playing on and clashing over. These are all unique. There are no duplicates in here. They're all fully illustrated with these beautiful, lush illustrations. On the backside, they have these lovely Celtic knot designs. And like I mentioned, they fit together just like puzzle pieces. For tokens, we've got these 3 circular tokens here. One marks the Bren. That's going to be sort of the temporary king that's taking reign throughout the course of the game for holding the capital territory. That's this piece here. I'll get into that in a bit. But the Bren is basically the temporary king until a winner actually becomes the king at the end of the game. There's also this Flock of Crows token here that designates whether or not player turn is going to go clockwise or counterclockwise. And at the beginning of every round, the Bren is actually going to flip that just like a coin, so that's going to be changing from time to time. Lastly, we have this festival token here, and that is to denote if there is a festival taking place in a territory. That's something you can generate using one of these green action cards. Lastly, we have these crowned Pretender to the Throne tokens, and these harp-like deed tokens. Pretender to the Throne tokens are basically there to designate or to notify other players that you're about to win, or on the next round you will likely be in the vying to win the game. It's basically a hey everybody come stop me kind of token, and you're required to take it in order to win the game. Secondly, we have these deed tokens here. These are basically shortcuts to victory. I'll explain how those work once I get into the victory conditions, but you can earn those at various points throughout the game, usually for completing or utilizing epic tail cards. That's these pink cards here. For miniatures, we've got 3 different colored clan miniatures, each of which has 3 or 4 different sculpts. I believe it's 4 different sculpts. So you don't just have little wooden cubes or anything like that. You have these lovely sculpted miniatures, and you've got a variety of sculpts at that. Those are going to represent your clans on the board. Each player is going to have 12 of those. Then for cards, we've got the general player reference cards here, 4 of those, 1 for each player. That's just going to give you a quick rundown on the 2 phases of every round, how clashes work, what the different types of cards are, just general reference stuff that you want at a glance. Then you have these 3 decks of cards. These green action cards are going to be the most commonly used. That's how you're going to take all of your standard actions throughout the game. You want to move a clan from one territory to another. You want to add clans to the board. You want to generate a festival in one of your territories. You want to explore and find a new territory to add to the map. That's all done through these green action cards. There's no rolling of dice. There's no additional beads or power that you need to save up. There's no tracker boards. It's all just if you want to take an action and you have the card to take that action, you're going to play the card and that action is going to occur. And some additional stuff may occur as well, but basically this green action deck is where all of your standard actions are going to come from. Then you've got these yellow advantage cards here. These are going to be obtained if you become chieftain of a territory. You do that by having more clans in that territory than any other player. So, for example, if you have 3 clans there, another player has 2, and a third player has 1, you're chieftain because you have more clans than any other player. And you get to gain the advantage card from that territory. Advantage cards are almost like junior action cards. They're not quite as powerful, but they're little buffs and benefits that you can utilize throughout your turn. Lastly, we have these pink epic tail cards here. These are the most powerful cards in the game, but they're also the hardest to obtain. At any given time, you're usually only going to have 1, maybe 2 of those in your hand, and once you use them, you're not usually going to immediately replace it, unlike action cards where you're going to begin every round with a draft of 4. Lastly, we've got these 3 sort of structure city pieces here, these miniatures. These 2 right here are the more common ones. You've got the Citadel, that's kind of a defensive stronghold, and you've got the Sanctuary, that's going to gear you towards one of the victory victory conditions, out of the 3 possible victory conditions for this game. And lastly, you have the capital piece right here. There's only one of those, and whatever territory it's placed in is going to be deemed the capital territory for the rest of the game. That's basically the territory you're going to be vying over to consider yourself Bren for the remainder of that round. Lastly, we have the rulebook. The rulebook is relatively short. I want to say it's about 8 to 10 pages, very cleanly laid out. Not a lot of fluff in there, but enough that you really get the theme that they're going for Celtic lore and mythology. There's actually a whole half page in there that breaks down in, so few words all of the lore behind these epic tale cards. So if you're not familiar with Celtic gods and lore and mythology, there's basically a mini paragraph in there on each one of these cards breaking down what it's all about. So that's pretty cool. Getting into setting the game up. You're going to begin by taking 1 territory tile per player. So if you have a 3-player game, we'll go off of that. You're going to have 3 territory tiles. You'll shuffle these and just pull the top 3 at random. And you're going to place them at the center of the table, interlocked again like puzzle pieces, and they do fit pretty much at any angle. It's really interesting. They look like they wouldn't, but they do. So you're going to place those 3 tiles at the center of the table, and you're going to position them such that each tile is touching the other 2. And that's because the rule for placing territory tiles throughout the course of the game is that whenever you place one, it has to be touching at least 2 other territory tiles. So starting with 3, they're all going to be touching. Then each player is going to take their clan miniatures and place them in front of them. You're going to choose 1 player at random, or you're going to randomize 1 player to begin the game as Bren, because you have to have a Bren to move through the rest of the setup. You can play rock, paper, scissors, you can roll dice. There's no nifty rule in the rule book about, the last player to visit Ireland or the most Irish player. None of that's included. So we use die. You could rock, paper, scissors, you could pick at random, doesn't matter. But choose 1 player to start as the Bren. That player is going to take the capital marker here, the capital miniature, and place it onto one of the 3 territories that you've just placed down. That is permanently going to become the capital territory for the rest of the game. If you are chieftain of the capital territory, you become Bren. So just like if you're a chieftain of any other territory, you would gain the advantage card. With the capital territory, not only do you gain the advantage card, you become Bren. So people are going to be vying over that. Last thing the Bren is going to do before we jump into the first proper round is they are going to take the Flock of Crows token and flip it in the air like a coin. And whatever side that lands on, showing the arrow clockwise or counterclockwise, that's going to designate turn order. So now we're going to move into placing our starting clans, and then we basically begin with the first round. Starting with the Bren and going in Flock of Crows order, each player is going to take turns placing 1 clan onto any of the starting territories. There's no limit to the number of clans that can be placed on any given territory. There's no controlling territories at this point, so you can mix and match where your clans go. You can put them all in one spot. You can spread them apart. There can be multiple clans from different players in different areas, or in the same area. That's fine. So you're going to go around the table, each player placing 1 clan into a territory, and you're going to go around a total of twice. So each player is going to have 2 clans somewhere on the board, somewhere in the territories. And at that point, you're ready to begin the first proper round. Going through the first phase, which is the assembly phase. The first thing you're going to do, and this may have shifted since you just finished setup, is determine who the Bren is. Again, that's the player who is the chieftain of the capital territory. And the chieftain is the player with the most clans in the capital territory. Now, if there is a tie, normally there would be no chieftain. If it was just a regular territory, if there's a tie, no one is chieftain, no one gains the advantage card. However, in the case of the capital territory, because there has to be a Bren, still nobody will gain the advantage card, and technically no one is chieftain, but the player who was the Bren on the previous round remains the Bren. So if you were the Bren during setup, and at this point in the first round there's a tie for the capital territory, you remain the Bren. And that rule is just because, like I mentioned, there has to be a Bren because the Bren sort of operates certain functions of the game, so you need to have one at any given time. So, if there's a tie, previous player remains the Bren. If there's a new player or the same player, basically whoever the new chieftain is becomes Bren. Then you move on to the second step of assembly phase. That is determining whether or not there is a winner. I would reckon at this point, unlikely to be a winner. Speaking of winner, here are the 3 different ways that you can win the game, because this is basically going to drive how you play going forward. The first one, the easiest one, is have at least 1 clan in 6 different territories. Now obviously right now there's only 3 territories on the board, so that's not possible. But one of the action cards in this deck is the exploration card, which basically says the Bren goes into the deck of territory tiles, grabs one without looking, chooses a spot on the board where it's going to go, again having to touch two existing adjacent tiles to be placed there, and then they're going to flip it, see what it is, and stick it in that spot. So you're choosing the spot, the Bren is choosing the spot before placing it there. then you actually get to, as the person who played the exploration card, you actually get to take one of your clans and add it to that location. There's a big distinction here that I'll make early on between placing a clan and moving a clan. Placing a clan from off of the board onto the board will usually not generate a clash. A clash is a fight. Moving a clan from one territory into another, where there are existing opponent clans, will initiate a clash in most cases. A clash, again, being a fight. So place is kind of like you can just pop right into existence and there's no trouble. Moving from one place to another usually instigates a clash. So if you wanted to go for that initial or that easiest win condition, which is a clan in at least 6 different territories, you're going to have to expand the board, or somebody's going to have to expand the board. And you do that with the exploration card from the action deck. The second win condition is having at least 6 clans that are opponent clans in your control. In your control means that you are the chieftain of a territory, and those opposing clans are in that territory. It doesn't mean you actually have any control over manipulating them or moving them or, using action cards on them. It's just for the case of this victory condition. So, say for example, you were in control of a territory, like I said at the beginning, you have 3 clans there. Another player has 2 clans there, and a third player has 1 clan there. There's a total of 3 clans that are not yours in a territory that you are chieftain of. You are in control of those 3 clans. If you can repeat that on a separate territory tile, you're now in control of 6 clans, and that's a victory condition. Lastly, you need to be in territories, or you could be in territories, with a combined 6 sanctuaries. Again, sanctuaries are placed on the board using a sanctuary placement action from the action deck. These are the sanctuaries here, these brown sort of small cottage-looking village pieces. Those can be placed onto tiles, and as many as you like can be placed on the tiles, assuming you take or you use the action card to place them. So once per round, basically, sometimes twice, because there is a druid action card that allows you to duplicate a card that's already been played from the discard pile. But usually once per round, a sanctuary is going to be placed somewhere on the board in one of the territories. There is no limit to the number of structures or clans from any number of players that can be in a single territory tile. So you could have one tile with a bunch of sanctuaries, a bunch of citadels, clans from separate players, doesn't matter. And these tiles are nice and big, so you can fit plenty of stuff on there. It's really well designed and they're oversized for a reason, even though these pieces are also a good size. So that third victory condition is being in territories with a combined 6 sanctuaries. So if there are 2 territories that have 3 sanctuaries apiece in them, and you have clans in each of those, you are in territories with a combined 6 sanctuaries. Or maybe it's 6 different territories with 1 sanctuary each. Or maybe it's 3 different territories with 2 sanctuaries each. It doesn't matter. As long as you are in, with your clans, in territories with a combined 6 sanctuaries. And again, the other 2, having clans in 6 different territories, or having 6 clans that you are in control of, opposing clans. So those are the 3 victory conditions. So that was step 2, check to see if anybody's won the game. Step 3, see who has gained the chieftain advantage of any specific territory, so any player who is now chieftain of a territory at this point gains the advantage card for that territory. So again, small little benefit on top of the standard action cards that you'll have, and possibly any epic tale cards that you've gained at that point. Then the Bren at that point is going to flip the Flock of Crows token. It might change, it might not, but that's going to determine clockwise or counterclockwise for player order. And lastly, the Bren is going to kick off the actual draft for action cards. So the Bren is going to shuffle the action cards, these green cards here. They're going to deal 4 to each player and discard any unused cards face down and unlooked at. Those cards are basically a secret. You don't know which ones are excluded from the round. There are 17 of these cards, so in a 4-player game there'll be 1 card left over, and more if you're playing with fewer than 4. Each player is then going to take their hand of 4 cards, excluding any advantage cards or epic tale cards that they have, just their green action cards. They're going to choose one, put it face down in front of them, and pass the other 3 in Flock of Crows pattern, either left or right, to the player beside them. You're then going to pick up the 3 that were just passed to you, add it to the one that you decided to keep. Again, now you're holding 4 cards. You're going to choose 2 this time. It does not need to include the one that you kept on the previous hand. You can swap things out, that's fine. But you're going to keep 2 and pass 2. Then you're going to pick up the 2 that were just passed to you. Again, you're now holding 4. You're going to keep 3, and you're going to pass 1. Lastly, you pick up the one that was just passed to you, and that is your hand of 4 action cards for this round. You can now pick up your advantage cards if you have any, add those to your hand, as well as any epic tale cards that you carried over from last round, add those to your hand, and that's what you've got to play with for this round. Now, starting with the Bren and going in Flock of Crows order, clockwise or counterclockwise, you're going to play 1 action card from your hand. There are 2 types of action cards. There are season cards, and there are triskel cards. Season cards are a standard action. You play it, it says something happens, you do the thing that happens. A triskel card, and I should say a season card is denoted by a small tree of life symbol in the top left corner. A triskel card is denoted by a small triple spiral in the top left corner. A triskel card is a reactionary card. It's going to have a little lightning bolt symbol on its description, and it's going to tell you exactly what triggers it. It might be when somebody plays a season card, it might be when somebody begins a clash, it might be when somebody moves a clan, but basically it's going to tell you what triggers it, when you can play it, and then what it does. You can play triskel cards off of your own actions, and opponents can play triskel cards off of your actions. So triskel cards might pop in and out from time to time depending on when people want to use them. But a season card, that tree symbol card, that's your standard action card. That's what you're going to play most of the time. So you play a card on your turn. You see if anybody has any triskels to resolve, you or anybody else. You would resolve those in Flock of Crow order for playtime. And then you would see if there are any clashes that have been triggered. A clash, as I said, generally triggers when a clan moves into a territory where enemy clans already exist. Even if you already have clans there. Say, for example, there's a territory where I have a clan and then two other players each also have one clan. So each of us has a clan in that territory. And from an adjacent territory, I move a clan in. So now I have two clans and they each have one. It doesn't matter that I was already there. It's not like I had pre-settled it, so now I'm free to move in as I choose. As soon as I add to that territory, because there are pre-existing enemy clans there, a clash begins. Clashes are pretty straightforward, and they're unique in the way that you basically don't have to have them. The first thing that happens when you move in is the clash initiates. That's important because anybody that has a triskel card that says at the beginning of a clash, technically as soon as you move in, a clash has begun. The first step of a clash is that anybody who was there other than the person initiating the clash. So again, even if I already had people there, moving in makes me the initiator, the instigator of the clash. I cannot take advantage of this step. This step is the Citadel step. Going in Flock of Crows order, I go around and say, do you want to go into a Citadel? Do you want to go into a Citadel? And we go around the table, passing me every time. And for every citadel that is on that territory, that's these gray sort of stone city structures here with this nice circular cutout, a player can take one of their miniatures, one of their clans, and pop it into a citadel. And if they do that, that clan is not part of this clash. They're not considered exposed. You have to be exposed to attack or to be attacked. So they're basically safe. They're going to sit in there, they're going to stand out this entire clash, and when it's done, they're going to pop back out, no harm, no foul. So I'm going to go around the table and I'm going to ask each player other than myself if they want to hop into a citadel. So one at a time, citadel, 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 skipping me until all citadels are taken or all players have said no thanks. At that point, we're going to move into the actual clashing bit. But before we do that, and at any interval throughout this clash process, I or any other player can say, hey, do we want to stop fighting? I'd like to stop fighting. Can we stop? And if all players agree, then you don't continue, you just stop. The clash ends, the clash resolves. So I can pop in, I can move a clan in. Okay, the clash begins, we do the Citadel phase, people hop into citadels, and then before I even take my first maneuver, my first attack or whatever, I can say, you know what, actually I don't want to fight, I was just trying to move a clan in, I don't want to start anything, I really don't have the force to fight, or I have so much force, why would you want to fight me, whatever kind of argument I want to make. And if other players agree, all other players in that clash agree, clash just ends. That's it. It still technically began, even if it immediately ends, but it ends without anybody having to remove any clans or discard any cards. However, if at least one player, whether it be I as the instigator or anyone else involved in that clash, says, no, we're doing this thing, then it's time to fight. When you take your turn in a clash, beginning with the instigating player and going around the table in Flock of Crows order, you're going to do one of three things. You can attack, which is the most basic. Basically choose a player that has an exposed clan, so not in a citadel, involved in that clash. And that player either has to discard specifically a green card. You can't discard advantage cards, you can't discard epic tail cards. Has to discard a green card from their hand or remove a clan from the territory. If they can't do either of those things, you can't attack them. Second option is you can withdraw. Withdraw is removing any number of your clans, including all of your clans, from that territory into an adjacent territory. The trick there is you have to be the chieftain of that adjacent territory. So if you're not chieftain of any of the surrounding territories of this clash, you can't withdraw. Now here's a trick. Though you only gain the advantage card for being chieftain at the beginning of each round during step 3, you become the chieftain of a territory as soon as you have the most clans there. So say, for example, I was in an adjacent territory where I have 2 clans and an opponent, or I have 3 clans and an opponent has 2 clans. I'm the chieftain, right? Say I take 2 of my clans and move them into another territory to initiate a clash. As soon as I move those 2 clans out, my opponent now has 2 and I have 1. They instantly become the chieftain of that territory. They don't gain the advantage card. They would have to still be the chieftain at the beginning of the next round during step 3. But they instantly gain the title of chieftain. So as soon as I've moved my 2 clans out, if things go sideways in that clash, I can't jump back because I immediately forfeited being chieftain, and you can only withdraw into a territory where you're chieftain. So that's important to keep in mind. Third thing that you can do is you can use an Epic Tale card, these pink cards here, that has a clash-specific ability. A lot of the Epic Tale cards are related to clashes. They have triskel-type abilities that say during a clash, or once at the beginning of a clash, or anytime a clan is removed from the board during a clash, things like that. So that's the third thing you can do. So you've got attack, causing a player to discard a green card, or remove a clan, withdraw into a territory where you are chieftain, or play a triskel card, an Epic Tale card, likely a triskel card, that has a clash ability on it. These are all called maneuvers. Once everybody has decided to either stop fighting unanimously as a group, or until one player has won and the clash is sort of naturally resolved, that's the end of the clash. One interesting bit here is that you can sort of force a clash to continue if you continue to play Epic Tale cards or use other abilities that you have. So it could be that you have the only clans left on the table in that territory, or maybe you have the only clans that are exposed in that territory. The other players have no actions left to take. But if you have actions to continue to take because maybe you have a handful of Epic Tale cards that say, at any time during a clash, you can continue to take your turn over and over. And the clash just keeps going until everybody is done and everybody has decided it's resolved. And then the clash is finished. And then you move on to the rest of your turn and possibly the next player's turn. Clashes, as you can see, are dealt with instantly. Now, the way I just explained it makes it seem very long and tedious and slow. It's not. That whole process that I just explained, that back and forth, getting everybody into citadels, the constant, do you want to stop? No? Okay, I hit you. Now do you want to stop? No. Okay, you hit me. Now do you want to stop? And that whole process takes a minute, tops. And because the board is so tight, there's not a lot of spaces to run and hide, even once you start to expand it with the exploration action. Usually 3 or 4 players are going to be involved in a clash. It's not very common that it's just 2 players, and if it is, it's usually going to be over quick. So clashes are resolved as soon as they're begun, and then once you're done, you move on with the rest of your turn. And then you move on to the next player's turn and around the table. Once every player has no cards left, or every player has passed, which is something that you can do on your turn. You just say pass in succession. So if I pass and then all other players pass, that's the end of the round. Or if we're all out of cards, that's the end of the round. Any unused action cards, the green cards, are discarded, and then the entire discard pile is shuffled to make the new deck for next round's draft. Any advantage cards are placed off to the side because you don't know, chieftains might change, so during step 3 of the next round, we're going to deal those back out to the players that have earned them by becoming chieftain or remaining chieftain. And then any Epic Tale cards that you've gained, you're going to hold on to. Epic Tale cards are the only cards that carry over from one round to the next because that's kind of like your gift from the gods. That doesn't just get swallowed back into the game, you earned it. Until you use it, of course. So that's your standard gameplay. You're going to go on like that until somebody has reached the point where they've met a victory condition. Now, you don't simply meet the victory condition and then at the beginning of the next round where we check to see if anybody's won, you win. Once you meet a victory condition, either 1 or more of the 3 that I listed, having people in 6 different territories, having 6 clans under your control, or having clans in territories with a combined 6 sanctuaries, you need to, on one of your turns, take a pretender to the throne token. If you forget to do this, basically, if you forget to call out Uno, I'm about to win, during the beginning of the next round, you don't get to compete to win the game. If you don't have that sort of ticket of entry, which is the pretender to the throne token, having taken it from the previous round, you don't get to win, even if you're still currently meeting one of the win conditions. So you have to take one of those. It takes your turn to do it. You can do it at any point once you've met one of the win conditions. And then at the beginning of the next round, you get to hold it up and say, hey, I took the token. I'm still meeting the win condition. I win. Now, what if 2 players simultaneously at the beginning of the next round have their tokens showing that they met them and are meeting win conditions? Well, it's a tie, and the game doesn't end, and it continues. However, if one player has met 2 win conditions and the other player has only met 1, the player who's met the 2 wins. What if the 2 players each met 1, but one of those 2 players is the Bren? The Bren wins the game. Bren breaks tiebreakers. Now here's a little trick about the deed tokens. Deed tokens, which are often gained by utilizing Epic Tale cards, count as one of your 6 points towards victory. So you know how I said you need to be in control of 6 clans, for example? If you have a deed token, you only need to be in control of 5 clans. If you have 2 deed tokens, you only need to be in control of 4 clans. Same with having clans in 6 different territories. It knocks it down to 5 or 4. Same with the Sanctuaries, 5, 4, 3. So for every deed token that you have, you've essentially pushed yourself one step closer towards win condition. If you have 6 deeds, and I don't remember reading anything in the rulebook against this, you've essentially met a win condition because 6 is the number that you need now. That would be very difficult to do, but you could do it. And you would pull the Pretender to the Throne token and hope that it carries over all the way to the beginning of the next round and you've won, unless it's a tie or unless, the Bren is involved and then things might get tricky. But that's basically the way the game works. You're going to go around the table until somebody's begun to meet the win condition. They're going to pull their Pretender to the Throne. Everybody's immediately going to try to stop them. Sometimes you get multiple Pretenders at the same time. But once somebody has won the game, they get crowned king, and that's sort of the end of the show. Really quickly, going into how I would rate this game, we have theme and immersion. Extremely thematic, beautifully illustrated, fully immersive. You don't feel like you're just moving pieces around a board. You feel like you're actually controlling clans as they explore this lush and beautiful island and discover new territories, swamps and moors and coves. It's fully immersive. It's beautiful to play. The theme is everywhere. Things are covered in Celtic knots and braids. You couldn't look at this and think anything other than this is a game based on Celtic mythology. I give it a solid 2 for theme and immersion. Cost versus quality, this is only a $70 game, and the components are all oversized, beautifully done, perfectly illustrated to theme. Everything's full color. The art style is amazing and unique. These cards, they're not just standard playing size cards, they're oversized tarot cards. Like I said, these triangular, jagged territory tiles, they aren't just your typical small palm-sized hexagons. They're these like beautiful, jagged puzzle pieces. They're wonderful to look at. They really fill the table up. The fact that you have 4 different sculpts to all of your miniatures, these nicely done structure, sort of city and sanctuary, citadel pieces, beautiful. The thick cardboard on all of the tokens, everything is amazingly well done. A solid 2 for cost versus quality. Ease of use, this game comes in and out of the box very easily. It's easy to set up because basically you're just going to plop down 2 to 4 map tiles, the territory tiles, and you're going to pass out the clans. There aren't a lot of tokens or beads or dice or little trinkets that need to be scattered around the table. During your turn, you're not going to be doing much other than playing a card, maybe 2, and moving 1, 2, 3 miniatures here or there. The board has plenty of space because the tiles are so big, so you're not going to be bumping into stuff. Very easy to work with. Easy to store, easy to take out and set up, fast. Solid 2 for ease of use. Enjoyable, great game, tons of fun to play, easy to repeat. We've played it 2 or 3 times in a night. It only takes about an hour to play. Everybody's enjoyed it. Everybody always wants to play again. They want to see what combinations of epic tale cards and what the map's going to spread out like and how the starting situation is going to impact the kinds of maneuvers that you make. Very enjoyable game. Solid 2 there. And then Teachable. This game is very easy to teach. The rulebook is only about 8 to 10 pages long. The rules, the basic mechanics to understand are very straightforward because you're pretty much just doing what the cards say. All you have to do is keep in mind the 3 win conditions, and you're pretty much good to go. I can't think of another game that plays at this level, this type of sort of strategic war game area territory control game that's as simple to learn or that's simpler to learn. Absolutely teachable, 2 out of 2. So I would give this game overall a 10 out of 10. I think it's absolutely spectacular. I would highly recommend that you pick it up if you can. It can be a little tricky to find, I've noticed, but if you get a chance, absolutely pick up a copy. And if you get a chance to play, I would highly recommend it. INIS is a spectacular game. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. If you haven't, please go down below and click on subscribe, set your notification bell to all. If you have time, leave a comment. I'll try to comment back so we can have a little chat, and leave a like or a dislike so I know how you're enjoying these videos. And I will see you in the next one. Have a good night.